John and I talk about big tech's big tobacco moment on this week's podcast.
Bald,
Blind,
and buddies.
Timmy C, how the hell are you? We're recording on a Saturday because I have to fly out of town tomorrow. I have training up in Boston.
Boston.
Boston, yeah. Have I sent you that link about, it's a meme about Boston? I sent it to Commissioner Davis after our broadcast. He thought it was hysterical. And it said, the thing people don't get about Boston is that it's crowded. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's cold most of the year. But the food, also terrible.
That's funny.
So I go up to Boston for the day on Monday, fly back Monday night.
When I was 6, I went there, and I couldn't understand the people. I was from the Midwest, and
it
they're
takes a little bit.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of getting used to. I found the same with Scottish people and Welsh people. Have you ever talked to them? You have to almost like it's like those. What are those pictures that are computer generated? And you have to kind of relax your eyes, and the image pops out. It's almost like you have to do that. You almost have to take a step back in terms of auditory and just sort of hear them and then figure out what they say.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been there probably in a good 25 years to that
too.
end, however. I'm excited. I'm actually going out. Katie's college roommate lives up there, so we're going to meet. She's going to show me around the town. I'm going to buy her some dinner, head to the hotel early, get a decent night's sleep, and then I've got training on Monday, and I fly back Monday night. So
That's awesome.
Quick turnaround. Yeah. But American Airlines, because of the TSA shutdown, has already offered me $600 if they need to for a free ticket if I change my flight. It's like, you know what? I'll take a $600 voucher, right? Anyway, how's everything with you? What's going on in Wisconsin? It's now almost April. Sports is in full swing, which is great. March Madness, the Masters is just around the corner, which is going to be today's trivia question.
Yeah.
But what's going on with you out there in Wisconsin?
Not much. Ending a quiet spring break here with the kids and turning 50 this week. So that's on my
I
mind.
know you are.
Yeah.
I
The
know
big
you are.
L. The big L.
Yes, that is correct. The Latin L. Yeah. LCDM. That's how I always remember it.
Yeah.
L is 50, C is 100, M is 500, and D is 500, and M is 1,000. Yeah. In fact, the Super Bowl for Super Bowl 50, they changed it back to the Roman numeral. Not that they changed it back to the regular numbers as opposed to Roman numerals, because Super Bowl L would have been a little weird.
Yeah. And Super Bowl was our last trivia question.
Oh, that's right. In fact, why don't we do the answer? Good call.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the question that was asked, and of course every year viewership is up, but the question is what was the highest rated Super Bowl of all time? And it's been a bit. I was actually surprised by this. Do you have any idea what it was, Tim?
So does rated mean like percentage?
So do you understand the Nielsen ratings? They had a 49 share. I suppose what that means is of all the TVs turned, and
Yeah, I think
for
that's
the
what it means.
viewers
yeah.
out there, if you know, let me know. But they had 49 in this Super Bowl, which I suppose that means out of every 100 televisions, 49 were tuned to the Super Bowl.
So
Is
half.
that
Yeah,
is that what that stipulates?
I think so. Yeah. So I'm guessing the 49ers.
The 49ers went in it. That's correct. And it was Super Bowl 16, way back when, against the Cincinnati Bengals in 1982.
Ooh.
Super Bowl 16.
Boomer.
Had a 49 share. Now, my understanding is the number of viewers this year was higher than that. But I think that it's sort of the difference between numbers and percentage, right?
Yeah.
The
The
idea
size of the pie and the slice of the pie.
Exactly. Well, that's a good way to put it, actually. I've never heard that. Yeah. So that was the highest rated Super Bowl. And to that end, why don't we just dovetail right into this week's trivia question, which is, of course, going to be sports related. I kind of go into the doldrums, basically from Christmas until the opening of March Madness, because that stretch of January, February, you know this, you live in the upper Midwest, is a tad depressing.
Yeah.
Right? Time change, gets dark at 4 o'clock. All these sorts of things. It's just, it's really kind of the time of the year that I just kind of slog through. And I always feel almost like a Andy Dufresne in Shawshank. been paroled once March Madness starts.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're constantly advertising the Masters, which is one of my favorite sporting events every year. The question for this week is, who holds the record for the most Masters titles?
Ooh.
It's pretty obvious, actually. So,
Okay.
and answer next week. Let's see
All
if
right.
any of our tens of listeners happen to know. So
I've gotten feedback from a listener, and they don't like it when we say our dozen listeners. They think we're dissing our listeners. So we are not. We're dissing ourselves.
You know what? Yeah,
You know?
we're more dissing ourselves, but that is a criticism received and understood. Yeah.
So no offense out there, all dozen of you. I'm sorry.
Dozens and dozens.
Dozens.
Any update on listenership and viewership? I understand we are in the top 150 in the UK.
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna crack that sometime. Our one of Shiri and Koshi, I've mentioned this. The one on generosity is getting a lot of plays. I think that's great because the world needs more generosity. So
yes, and I found it fascinating, just the psychology behind it. How you get people to do things. Yeah, that's interesting. Have you noticed, by the way, like when you go to the grocery store and stuff, they ask, do you want to round up?
Yes.
I get that all the time. Do you want to donate, round up? And it's, it could be at most 99 cents, and it can be as small as a penny. But I do it almost every time now. And that's a very, very effective way to get people to donate, And I would imagine if you take that on a macro level, it probably makes some tangible difference.
Yeah. So, what's hilarious is I think it was, I don't know, IHOP or some local chain was saying, do you want to donate to the Children's Hospital? And we have like the UW Children's Hospital right here in town, but they actually were collecting for one in Milwaukee. So it was really,
okay.
It was like, which Children's Hospital do you mean? So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. People really want to give locally.
Yeah.
I remember the blowback with September 11th when all these people were donating blood, and the Red Cross had an abundance of blood, and they were basically saying, we're going to take some of this blood and we're going to take some of this money and put it aside for future disasters, and people were upset.
Yeah.
And I understand why people are upset, and I also understand why the Red Cross was doing what they were doing, but I think people want to feel like they see a tangible, result of their giving, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that Cheery and Koshi's really driving some listenership.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about today, Timmy?
Well, John, we're talking about two big lawsuit results that came out this week regarding platforms like YouTube and Meta. And, my brain, as a dozen listeners know, doesn't work quite like everybody else's. So I was musing on this, and I have a way to put this in perspective, perhaps, with a clip. Does that sound okay?
I'm in. And yes, I think we're all in agreement that your brain does not work like the rest of ours. We were actually joking, and you said something stupid, and I told Jimmy about it. He's like, yeah, you mean the former valedictorian at Notre Dame, the doctor? I was like, yeah, that one.
That's me.
Yeah, your brain does not work the way most people do.
So I was thinking back to the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise. And the famous Code Red scene in the courtroom. So I use that as my jumping off point. So imagine a tech CEO on the stand, and it might go a little like this.
Because your orders are followed. Did you order growth at all costs? I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls and cat videos and misinformation and child predators. And those things need to get over the wall too. Who's going to do that? And my existence, although grotesque and incomprehensible to you, makes me money. Lots and lots of money. Deep down somewhere, you like people putting ice buckets on their head and your beauty filters. We use words like growth and community and monetization as a badge of honor. You use them as a punchline. I don't give a damn what you think you're entitled to.
There you go, John.
I like it, Timmy. And that is one of my favorite scenes when Jack Nicholson says, you want answers? I think I'm entitled. Do you want answers? Yeah. I love that.
So, there we
but,
go.
that is germane and relevant. So tell everybody what happened today. There was basically, or what happened this week. When things become part of the public record as a result of lawsuits or legal action stuff, it changes the dynamic for better or for worse.
It does.
Because now things are in the public domain. They're publicly accessible. And essentially YouTube and Meta were found guilty. A 20-year-old woman had sued and said that she had suicidal ideation, had an eating disorder and some other things, and was able to trace it back to her addiction to the social media platforms. And I'm torn on this.
Well, so that's the one in Los Angeles. And
Yeah.
two other things to note is Snap and TikTok already settled with her. So
Oh, okay. So they didn't want this in the public domain.
yeah. TikTok, ties back to China. Just pay them off, right?
Timmy, let me let you know a little secret. That's not just China. I mean, they say that if you have if you're in a lawsuit, the only people that win are the lawyers.
Yeah.
And so that is basically, I think that's the smart policy, is just make that go away, pay them off, get it out of the domain, and let's move on. Right? Or don't you agree with that?
Well, I think it shows the pragmatism. China throws money at every problem, right? Getting American consumers, it's military, whatever it is, just buy them off. And buy intellectual property, steal intellectual property. It's just more from this exact same playbook. So, but we don't have to get into China here.
Let me tell you how I'm coming at this, and let me hear how you come at it, both from your perspective as a physician and a psychiatrist.
Let's hit the New Mexico thing, too.
Oh, right. Please. Yeah, go ahead.
So in New Mexico, there's a $375 million verdict against, I believe is it just Meta? And regarding exposing children to child trafficking and predators. So I think in many ways that's even more important and has more gravity than the single.
That has more teeth.
Yeah, I think so. Because that's a lot of money, and addiction and those things are one thing, but being exposed to a child predator or being trafficked are more objectively notable, right? And I think you can say there's more provable harm there. So I think that's actually where more vulnerability lies. It turns out that in revealed testimony or statements, Meta had a 17 strike policy for traffickers.
17 strikes.
Yeah, I'll link it in the show notes. It would take 17 strikes before you were kicked off the platform for trying to traffic children. So we get up in arms about Epstein, and justifiably so, and those are famous people using power, all that drop in the bucket compared to what Meta has catalyzed. And that's why I think the New Mexico thing is even more telling.
Okay, so let me just sort of expand and expound on how I'm feeling, and I want to hear your retort, your answers, particularly not only from your conservative leanings, as it were, but rather as a physician, a psychiatrist in particular, because there seems to me to be an evasion, or at least an attempt to evade responsibility, personal responsibility. And I'm not saying with this young woman, but I'm curious where you would draw the line between what you are personally responsible for. So I tend to have very strong libertarian leanings, as you know. If you want to smoke cigars, you want to smoke cigarettes, you want to smoke pot, whatever it may be, that's fine. But inherent in that is you have to accept personal responsibility for the what ultimately comes of it, whether you get lung cancer, things of that nature, so to speak, right? I get sort of the potpourri, the jambalaya of life, basically, that, ultimately if this person gets lung cancer and they're poor, they're going to have Medicaid, so we're all paying for it and all these other things. You can go down a rabbit hole that way. But I'm curious as to, and it sounds like this was a very, very substantial findings of the addictive programming associated with Meta and with YouTube. And so this young lady was able to prove it in a court of law. And again, proving something in a court of law is a big deal because, as I always joke, everybody knows OJ killed his wife. They didn't prove it in a court of law, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you see the divide between evasion of personal responsibility, because there has to be an acceptance of some responsibility. But by the same token, I also am aware that, for instance, when you smoke cigarettes, by nature, they are addictive. And so you may have made the conscious decision to begin smoking, but it's almost that you're in the hands of the tobacco industry once you decide to quit, because they've created a legally addictive substance. They keep jacking up the price, and you're left to your own wiles, as it were. Where do you see the line, Timmy, between accepting personal responsibility, don't go on the social media platforms, versus them programming, which apparently was proven to be addictive?
I think there's at least two thoughts here. First of all, I think this is big tech's big tobacco moment. I think
I think that's a fair analogy.
Yeah.
Explain what you mean by that, but I know what you mean.
So big tobacco for the longest time was, said things like, or wouldn't acknowledge that nicotine was addictive, and also wouldn't acknowledge the connection between smoking and lung cancer. And I think what we're seeing here is the notion that this product is addictive, and we can get into what that means, and that it causes real world harms. So I think in a lot of ways, I think this is their big tobacco moment. When you talk about personal responsibility, I think that's well and good to some extent, but we have an extra obligation towards our children. And this young lady, Kaylee, in the case, got started, I think, at 6 or 9. And the systems did not verify her age, did not do anything to control. And so I think we have a special obligation to our children. We know that. And I think that's a big issue here. But I also think acknowledging and knowing that these really are addictive, and they're designed to be, right? It's like manipulating nicotine levels. They're designed to be addictive. And I think the more that's understood and the more people know that, they have the opportunity to choose differently. But it's a big deal.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing from you is you're making a key differentiation between age, meaning there's a foundational difference between adults choosing to engage in behavior versus children. And I celebrate that. I agree with you 100%. And so there is an element of me that says, yes, I can see how this young lady can win this trial and did win this trial. Now they're going to, of course, appeal. It's going to take years, but the thrust of the argument basically was they're creating this platform, whether it be Meta or YouTube, to be addictive. And so you're making a differentiation between age, which I agree with. If you want to do something and they say at 18, have at it, you're now an adult, for better or for worse, you can engage in this behavior. And you also liken it to the tobacco moment, which leads to my next question. Should these social media platforms be required to, for instance, have a warning the same way that tobacco does? Over in Europe, they have stamps on their cigarettes that say, smoking kills. Here we have, the Surgeon General warns that nicotine can be addictive and blah. Nonetheless, there's a warning on the packaging. Should that come with the social media platforms? These things can be addictive. Be warned.
Well, sure, that's fine. But you also, if you want to look, TikTok in China has mandatory breaks for kids. Like you can only do so much time at a time.
Really?
Yes, yeah. It shows them, their TikTok feed gives them vegetables and science experiments, right? So you can have changes to the actual process that render them less addictive, right? So I think that makes more sense to me than saying, hey, it's addictive. If you wanted to do that, what I would do is I would have every app, when you open it, gives you a variable delay and the message on the screen for anywhere from 5 seconds to 5 minutes that says, by the way, this is addictive, and it slows you down, right? Like that could be one way to do it.
So now it's funny you mentioned that, because what Europe did with prescribing medications only in the United States, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, because you're the physician, not I, but we give out prescriptions in bottles, 30-day supply, here's 30 of them. What they do in Europe is almost like those Z-packs where you have to punch the pill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to punch each individual pill.
Blister pack, it's called.
Blister packs. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm talking about, though. And they have found, literally, that the rates of suicidal ideation and actually committing suicide have gone down substantially, directly corollary to that.
Yeah.
Because in the time that it takes for somebody to push each individual pill out, because if I want to commit suicide, I could just pour all my medicine in my mouth at once. You can't do that in other countries around the world. And that simple sort of process delay has been shown to, remove the probability of suicide, as it were. Should something like that happen with the social media platforms, where you can have snippets of this for 5 minutes, but then you have to take a 7-minute break?
Yeah.
Or things like that. We do it with truck drivers, we do it with pilots, we do it with people that, can get tired on the job. Why not do it?
Honestly, John, for kids, right? It's down from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Boom. Like the app can do that. Or infinite scroll is another one, and push notifications. We know what makes them, hook you. It's not for lack of knowledge. The people in Silicon Valley know exactly what they're doing, and you can do something different.
And there are always whistleblowers that come out about this. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you tell us a story? And I've heard about this. It might be just anecdotal, but I think there's some validity to it that, one of the lead programmers for Meta or one of these major social platforms will not let his children.
They all, a lot of them. A lot of them, yes.
On the basic premise that they recognize what these things are doing and how they are programmed. Do you think, and I say this almost in jest, how do you suppose Mark Zuckerberg and folks who do this sleep at night? I mean, my question, again, they made the argument in essence that growing up is inherently complex. There's a gazillion different variables. It's sort of like the cancer clusters, if you will. We all know that there was something in the water in such and such a community, but whether or not you're able to prove that in a court of law is a very, very difficult hill to climb. There's validity to that, I would argue. And Facebook is falling back on the idea, or Meta is falling back on the idea that, growing up is inherently complex. You can't just, find a correlation between us. Causation and correlation are not the same thing. The jury didn't see it that way. But do you, it sounds to me from what I'm hearing that the leaders of these social media platforms, like you said, the 17 times that someone's involved in trafficking, how is one time okay? How do you suppose they sleep at night? Is it just the money?
Well, honestly, I think it started, like many things, I think it started with good intentions, some naivete, and a very libertarian, honestly, mindset, right? Let's get people talking. What can be wrong with that? Let's connect people. But it turns out when you get people talking and you let troll farms manipulate things and you spread hate speech, bad things happen too. And I think at some point they looked the other way when those things started to happen, and then it got big, and the jets and the yachts, and maybe they help you sleep at night. I don't know.
The jets and the yachts. Yeah, he probably sleeps well on his yacht.
Yeah, probably sleeps well on his yacht.
Yeah, it's one of these things that I wonder though. Did they do this intentionally, or is it that old Mark Twain notion that it's very difficult to convince someone that they're wrong when their livelihood depends upon them being right?
Yeah.
Where the money is. But maybe this is naivete on my part. How much is enough? There's that famous saying in Wall Street where he says, how many yachts can you ski behind, Gordon? How much is enough? Right. But it seems like these CEOs and some of these whistleblowers who have come out have said not only are they aware of it, they're pushing for increased focus on addictive technology and such. It makes me just wonder, like, where is your humanity if you know you're doing this?
Yes. Well, what's their slogan, John? Move fast and break things. And
that was Meta's, right? That was Facebook.
That's Facebook, and they're breaking. Yeah. They've broken a lot of things. Right?
Well, it's already been 10 years, which is amazing to say. But do you remember after the election of 2016 when Trump won and then Hillary Clinton lost, and a lot of people were saying that was directly that Russian trolls had sort of, now whether or not we can prove ultimately that Russia interfered in the election in a court of law, maybe not, but everyone kind of knows that Russia was in the camp for the Trump administration. That's already been 10 years. And when they asked Mark Zuckerberg about it, he kind of poo-pooed it like, oh God, that's so silly. Like, how dare you? And it appears, they're right. Like, this is happening, right? And it seems to me that in 10 years, it's gotten even more pronounced. What do you think is going to happen as a consequence, or what is your hope that is going to come as a consequence, not only of this Los Angeles jury finding, Meta and YouTube guilty, but also in New Mexico, and further, and it's not by coincidence, the day after that judgment was handed down in Los Angeles, a lawsuit was filed in federal court accusing FanDuel and DraftKings, the betting sites, of the exact same behavior, saying they know how people bet, they incentivize people that might be prone to it, and so forth and so on. How do you feel about that? Because by law, you have to be 18 to be able to bet. So you're an adult, and I understand that your frontal lobe is not fully developed, blah, 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 but if we're going to have an arbitrary line and make 18 adulthood, it has to apply not only for the good, but for the bad. How do you feel about that? Should these betting platforms face a similar sort of blowback?
I think so. So here's a couple thoughts. In the past 6 months, Meta's stock price has plummeted about 29%. They're laying.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Dow, Timmy, but
it's
not
worse.
just Meta.
It's worse than the
war in
Dow.
Iran is sort of is taking a toll on people's checkbooks.
Yeah,
and not in a small way.
Yeah.
I love the euphemisms they use. Wall Street is now in correction territory.
Correction.
That means it's down more than 20%.
Yeah. So Kathy Wood's ARC Innovation Fund is divesting a bit from Meta. They're laying people off. So if your model is growth at all cost, and you're not growing, I think that's going to be part of the wake up call. It looks like maybe there's at least 2,400 suits, including one from school districts in federal court.
Oh, there's like 4,000 of them.
Yeah,
it's nuts how many people are suing. But my question is this the cash grab in reverse? Meaning Meta did this, they knew what they were doing, and they did it because of the money. Is this sort of, like it's kind of like the Catholic Church, and far be it for me to ever defend the Catholic Church. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But everyone knows at this point, it's been 25 years since the first major, child abuse scandal broke in the Diocese of Boston. At this point, people coming out, and again, I'm not a victim, and I understand that there are latent sort of memories that can germinate. But there is an element, is there not, of, eager beaver lawyers sort of exploiting people's grief? Is not the same thing applying here? Meaning, oh, they got money, maybe we can too.
I perhaps, but I think this is the marketplace saying, hey, slow down. And I think that is going to be very, very helpful. I think it could theoretically lead to positive change, and I'm hopeful. So
now, what do you want the change to be? Going back to my earlier question, what do you hope comes as a consequence of this? And I'm specifically asking you as both an MD and a psychiatrist, because you deal with addiction, right? I mean, you have expertise on it. So tell us about that.
Well, I want to protect children, first of all, right? I want to have, Australia has a way of not letting kids on social media. So I want to have something like that so that we can give kids the best chance. Yeah, they're not fully developed at 18, but they're a lot better off than they are at 9 when they engage with this stuff. So I think we do that. I think we have some transparencies on the algorithms. I think, we could do things like eliminate infinite scrolling. Like, these are all, we could address stuff.
What is infinite scrolling? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so that's when you're on a page and you get to the bottom and it just keeps going. We used to have to click next. If you recall this, you'd get, say, your top.
Oh, yeah. So almost like the thumbtack sort of. What did they call those with the medicine? The same thing. You have to take the initiative.
Yeah. You used to be like, oh, I got the first 10 search results. Oh, nope, it's not there. Click next. But if you notice with YouTube or anything now, you just keep scrolling, and they know that keeps you hooked. And just little things like that could be fixable, right? Now,
do you deal with this type of addiction? You don't have to violate anybody's privacy and so forth, but is this as powerful as some of the? I mean, is this as powerful as, say, alcohol or some of the addictions that are sort of commonplace in today's society?
I think it can cause a lot of harm. I talk about screen time use with pretty much, at least check in on it with all my patients, because it's
really
Is
there assuming that it's like smoking, there's no healthy amount of smoking, but how many cigarettes a day? If you're having 2, that's different than having 3 packs, right? Is it the same thing? What is considered to be, cause for concern in terms of scrolling?
Well, honestly, like when I worked at the university, there were students who were over 6 hours a day on social media. And it's like, you can't be a successful college student with 6 hours a day devoted to this.
Well, the way in which you talk about the University of Wisconsin, maybe they can.
So,
I mean, they don't really even have to go to class.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. It's amazing they weren't failing out. It interferes. So the markers of addiction. I think it's the American Society of Addiction Medicine has the 4 C's of addiction, and I think this is helpful. The first one is compulsion. So you've got this irresistible urge to engage in it. You have craving, so this positive thought about using, and it's triggerable, right? So and when your phone pings, you get a notification that triggers a craving. Use despite consequences. That's the kid should be playing outside, should be doing his homework, should be engaging with real people in the real world, and isn't. And a lack of control. They want to stop, but they just can't do it, right? Those are the 4 C's of addiction, and we see that with screens and smartphones all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you're reacting, and you are creating a new sort of paradigm, as it were, from your psychiatric experience, from your experience as a doctor. What are some of the guideposts you would use? Obviously, you mentioned children. Are there any others, like differentiating between children and adults? And to your point, that's very well received, by the way, that, I tend to believe that people have to accept personal responsibility for their behavior, but I liken this almost to the GLP-1s now, if you will. You are facing such an uphill battle with the food delivery in this country, and everything is sugar based and addictive based, for lack of a better term. If you are making a good faith effort to exercise, eat right, and yet are not losing weight, I'm okay with people taking these GLP-1s, whether it be Ozempic or others. Blah, blah. Where I draw the line is with people that are, eat at Burger King, McDonald's, 6 days a week, and then just take a shot. I find that to be unfair, but life in many ways is unfair. My curiosity to you is recognizing these things are addictive, and that they are peripatetic. They're part of everyday life, whether we want them to be or not, because they have increased activity in certain positive ways as well. Smartphones have, right? I can work from home now because of the availability of technology and so forth. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is open for debate. But what are some of the other guideposts you would put in besides just children have to be dealt with differently than adults? What would be some of the other suggestions that you have to click next, the infinite scrolling, what are some of the others from your perspective?
The push notifications on especially gambling sites, I think, is a deal. So the old cartoons, you would have the angel and the devil on your shoulder, right? And the angel's like, oh, go eat some
the most famous being Animal House.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, people are literally carrying the devil in their pocket. Right? You're not pretty enough. Put on a beauty filter. Have you gambled lately? You turn it on, you might get a nasty pick. Like that temptation is there. So I would say, put your phone away sometimes, folks. Get exercise, and check in with the people in your life about how you're doing, because it's I saw this article. It was the third partner in your marriage is your smartphone, and it's like, unfortunately, there's some accuracy to that.
Yeah. And again, how do you combat a computer? I know people that were in finance that, they used to make their living, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, picking stocks, the most famous, of course, being Warren Buffett, based on, fundamental principles of undervalue and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of people that have said you can't beat a computer now. And, it's estimated that half of the traffic on social media is computer bots. It's not even human beings.
Yeah.
So you're competing against sort of a faceless enemy that is never sleeps, right? There's a line in Top Gun Maverick where he says, one day pilots will be replaced. People that don't have to take breaks, don't disobey orders, don't have to stop to use the bathroom, blah, 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 just computers. And there's a wonderful aspect to that when you think about how much that can impact society, but there's also a negative aspect. How do I compete against an addictive technology that's not even human-based? I'm competing against the computer.
Yeah. Well, so Archimedes said, give me a lever and a place to stand and I'll lift the world, right? And I think we need to realize, where is our place to stand, right? And it's probably not on a screen, right? It's in the people in your life, the people that matter to you. And as long as we anchor ourselves there and say, is something taking me away from that? Is something me knocking it off this spot? Then I think that gives us the best chance.
Now, you being blind, do you find yourself sort of sucked in the same way? Is it above and beyond sort of eyesight that these platforms do with push notifications and other things? I mean, what I'm getting at is it hit on all the senses, not just visual?
Yeah, I mean, I try to take care with it. I do, I look at YouTube, I check out videos. And for me, the other part is the smartphone is so empowering to me. Like, I can read stuff on the fly.
I know. I saw that when I was out at your house. And it'll tell you what you're seeing. Right. I mean, so we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It has made your life foundationally better.
Incredibly. Like, I can just grab a pizza out of the freezer and read the instructions. Like, it's just amazing.
Well, Timmy, if you need to read instructions on a pizza, you get bigger problems. I mean, you kind of turn the oven on, pal.
Time and temperature.
Time and temperature. Gotcha. Okay.
So that sort of thing. So I think it's different for me, but also,
But I would imagine you're subject to push notifications. If you had a gambling addiction, you
Yeah.
probably,
Oh, totally.
it
Yeah.
will ping you in just a different way. They'll get you to the court, as it were, get you to the church on time.
Absolutely. So.
Well, Timmy, I am excited to see, not excited because I don't want, that's the wrong word to use, but I am interested to see how this plays out. Because again, I think the question for me is where is the line between personal responsibility and fighting, forces that are arrayed against you? And clearly, these social media platforms have made these things to very much be addictive. Your point about children is very well received, and I am as guilty as the next person. So I cannot judge. Of you're looking at your phone, all of a sudden you get a ping, and it might be a message or blah blah. 90% of the time, it's junk. But I'm as guilty as the next person. But I'm curious to see how this is going to change the social media delivery, their platforms, their business models and such, because this is a big thing that it's in the public record and they have been found guilty.
Well, and their common excuse is there's no evidence of harm, right? You can't prove it's harmful. And every time a case comes up like this and there's a result, that becomes less and less defensible.
Yeah. The absence of something doesn't mean that, the absence of conflict doesn't mean it's peace.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And now this is tangible evidence. And why this matters for folks that are not lawyers is this is part of the public record. The public domain can be used as precedent and things of that nature. So I would imagine this is very much the tobacco moment. The irony of that, however, is the same percentage of people who smoked. It has gone down, but there is a holding of whatever it is, 16% or 12% of the population that still smokes in spite of all the evidence. And I would imagine the same thing is going to be true with these, even if they change their business model to make them less addictive and you have to click next and it shuts down after an hour or whatever it may be. I would imagine there's people that are going to find ways around it and have the addictive personality for better or for worse. But I think that this is a major, major victory against the social media platforms. I think they've been put on notice.
Yep, so. Absolutely.
Well, Timmy, let me do my whack job this week because this is almost germane to what we're talking about, the dangers of technology, right? Mm-hmm. And I have started to use AI in certain instances and so forth. I had to do a presentation for work and I put it into AI. And I'll tell you, it sped out something that was 100% better than what I would have done, right? In terms of color contrast and pictures and slides and so forth and so on. But like anything, it has to be used in moderation. And my whack job this week is a attorney based out of Salem, Oregon by the name of Bill Giroso. And I'm going to spell it so that people know. Giorso. So Bill Giroso, he was found guilty. It says, and this is from the Oregonian, the local Oregon paper. Another Oregon attorney has been bamboozled by the incorrect output of artificial intelligence, and the state's appellate court has slapped him with a record fine. The Oregon Court of Appeals issued a $10,000 fine to Bill Giroso, a Salem-based civil attorney, after determining he signed his name to a legal brief containing at least 15 bogus citations and 9 quotes, that have been contrived out of thin air. So I think this is just a reminder that as wonderful as technology can be for people like you, Timmy, and make your life tangibly better, the downside has to be acknowledged as well. And as wonderful as AI has been, I suppose when you're, doing legal research, do the legal research. Don't rely on AI. This guy actually had to pay a $10,000 fine because he put the information into AI. It spit out something that didn't exist, and they caught him. And so it's a reminder that, look, technology, we may be getting ahead of our skis too quickly sometimes, as it were, right? And so Bill Giroso is my whack job this week.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, so apparently he asked AI if those were valid citations, and that's like asking the fox, the fox to guard the hen house, right?
I know. It's like asking. I remember when I always remember when George W. Bush appointed Christine Todd Whitman, and it was unfair. I get it. I grew up in New Jersey, but he appointed her as the head of the EPA, and somebody commented that having someone from New Jersey be the head of the EPA is like having Tony Soprano run the FBI. It's like, I remember that. And AI, are these accurate? Sure, as far as you think.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, what did you expect them to say? No, we made those up out of thin air. But he's my whack job. And again, it's a constant reminder of the dangers of technology. I think it's a wonderful thing, and the advancement of humanity is undeniable. But man, be careful.
Yeah. So John, I never thought I would say this, but my hero, I'm agreeing with Tim Walz Governor of Minnesota.
Oh, the governor of
No,
Minnesota.
no,
Okay.
he's not my hero. Don't get me wrong, but I agree.
Okay.
I agree with him.
I'm less surprised. I'm
Yes.
waiting for you to make someone from the University of Wisconsin-Madison your hero.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
waiting.
Tim Walz, the
Keep
the
waiting.
VP nominee on the Democratic Party, the former governor of Minnesota. Go ahead.
So he also called out this lady, Elvira Newman. So she is a fan of the Minnesota Golden Gophers women's basketball team, and she has this habit of going in front of the stands in, I think it's the third or the fourth quarter, waving this Gopher blanket. They call her the blanket lady. And so she was actually helped get girls basketball started in her local area back in, I think, the 60s. And she's been a fan for a long time. And during a recent NCAA tournament game, the Gophers were behind. She gets down and starts doing her thing. And, you know, the crowd gets into it, and the Gophers rally and overcome a deficit to win a recent game this week. So she's the blanket lady. We'll link to her in the show notes. But
And did Tim Walz call her out? Is that what
he
you're
did,
saying? You
yeah.
agree with him?
He like
saying thank you for this.
Yeah, he honors her. I don't know if he declared a day or something, but hey, I agree with him. You know, and when people are, you know, when we agree, we agree.
And, you know, that is one of the frustrating things, not to be the old man, get off my yard just yet, but we're both 50 now.
Yeah.
You, happy birthday, by the way, a couple days in advance.
Yeah.
To that end, though, this is the thing that frustrates me about sports because it's so expensive. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we were talking about going to a Phillies game this year, and he goes, yep, I set aside $2,000. I'm taking my family of 5 twice. I was like, you expect to spend $1,000? He's like, think about it. And all of a sudden, I started doing it in my head, and I was like, you know what? He's not wrong. Right? I mean, just to go to a baseball game, you get down there, you park, it's $60. Each ticket is $100. You want a beer, it's $28. You have a thing of popcorn, the kids want this. Next thing you know, it's $1,000. And I just love sports for the stories like Sister Jean that rooted for the Loyola basketball team, right? And there's Joe the firefighter that roots for the Jets, and he's on television all the time. There's these famous fans. And that is one of the things that I think needs to be celebrated about sports. So I really like that hero this week, that there are these people that are dedicated, they go, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just, it's a great thing about sports. I lament how expensive it's become for the average person to do it. So, well, Timmy, good to reconnect, pal. We had that memorial to Coach Holtz. I've heard from some folks that have listened to it and they liked it, hearing Frank Stams and Wes Pritchett talk about him and his 3 rules of life and how much he had an impact on their life. I think was a great podcast last week, and I'm looking forward to hopefully having them back on in the future. But I'm heading up to Boston, you know, as a Yankees fan, as a Giants fan. This is not my favorite town, but it is chock full of history, and as you know, I love history, so I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
What are you doing this weekend? Anything? You're going to your in-laws, right?
Yeah, going to the in-laws, just taking it easy.
Is that for the birthday party? Is that what that's? Are they
Yeah,
kind of throwing
we'll do
your
a
birthday?
little bit there. Yeah. So.
Is there going to be Kamala Harris's stuffing as a side dish? Or no?
Ooh, I don't think so. No, we saved that for Thanksgiving. Her best contribution to America, I'll tell you that.
Timmy, I love you. Well, listen, pal, have a great weekend. Say hello to the boys and to Blue Leaf. And this is John Bolin signing off saying, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances.
And this is Tim saying, if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Let's keep talking. And I thought we would just fade out with a list of things that social media has been implicated in causing or worsening. Human trafficking, sexually inappropriate material to kids, child grooming, beauty filters causing body dysmorphia, algorithms feeding content leading to self-harm, addictive design, infinite scroll, notifications, censorship, including the Hunter Biden laptop story, building AI data centers causing local problems and contributing to global warming, diminishing human attention span, decreasing physical activity, worsening sleep quality, political polarization, genocide in Myanmar, and more.